I'm Simon Worthington from the Open Science, Open Scholarship platform Generation Research. And we look at open science, open scholarship, yes, across Europe. And I'm here to interview Kerstin Göpfrich, if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm sure you can correct me. Who's from the project RingaScientist. And so thank you for spending the time to take part in this short interview. And I suppose, first off, would you like to tell us about RingaScientist and what you're doing at RingaScientist?
Sure. So RingaScientist is all about bringing scientists into the classroom live by web conferencing. So it is a platform where scientists can register with their profiles, provide a bit of information about themselves, and then teachers can search these profiles to find a scientist who fits to their classroom lessons. So then they can schedule a short Skype or web video conference, and then the scientist can join live during the classroom sessions.
Oh wow, great. And maybe I think I'm reversing these the other way around, but so you yourself are a scientist, and so maybe just tell us a little bit about what you're studying, your research too.
Yeah, so my research is about bringing chemistry to life in a way. So I'm a physicist by background, and I'm using tools like DNA origami to build synthetic cells. So I'm trying to use chemistry to make things that behave like living cells, and to use them for many different applications, including biomedicine.
Right. Okay. And so. How do you balance your research work with, I suppose, your citizen science, open science interests?
That's of course a good question. It's never easy. I mean, science research is demanding, and so is doing outreach. It's time consuming. And this is actually how the idea about RingaScientist came up, because I was actually visiting schools quite often to show experiments, to talk to them about what a researcher does day to day in the lab and so on. And I really enjoyed that. But then I started to get requests from schools further and further away, and I just couldn't. I didn't have the time to actually go there and meet all of them.
Sure.
So eventually I said, well, I can't come. Can we just do it via Skype? And then instead of traveling there for half a day, traveling back for half a day, I would just spend half an hour to an hour on Skype. And actually, I was able to show them the lab, do virtual lab tours, show experiments that I could never have taken to the classroom. And I actually realized that also the students were quite comfortable in this virtual interaction, and they were asking questions which they didn't dare to ask before. And I just felt it was a very time efficient way of doing outreach.
Yeah.
At the same time, for the teacher, the same was true. And for the students, it's at least a nice addition to, let's say, lab visits and so on. So that's how the idea actually came about.
Yeah. Well, I think, like many people, you see what technologies can afford you, and where the gaps are.
That's actually what we hear from a lot of the scientists on the platform, that they say, look, I would never do a school visit. I really just don't have the time. And if you tell them, look, you can do it via Skype, you can do it via web video, then they actually get interested, and they say, yeah, okay, cool, I can do this, because it's anyway part of our daily business, so to say. We Skype with our colleagues all the time. So quite easy to integrate.
Yeah. And so, I suppose a question I might have is like, so what can people, I mean, as you're saying, RingaScientist is a platform for video conferencing. So what can people do on RingaScientist? Like, do they schedule a call? Do they make a request for a call? Or
so I would divide the users into two groups. So first of all, there are the scientists, And what the scientists can do on the platform is they can, first of all, go to www.RingaScientist.org, where they can set up a profile in just a few minutes, tell us about who they are and so on. And then they register, and once their profile is on, the teachers can scroll through and search these profiles according to, for instance, their school subject. So they can say, okay, I'm planning a biology lesson, grade 10 biology. I would like somebody who can talk about DNA. And then, for instance, my profile would come up, and then they could just click a button called Contact Kerstin, and they could tell me about what they would like me to do in their lesson, whether they want me to say lead a discussion or show an experiment, and they can tell me about this, and then I can say, yeah, I have time on this date, this time, let's do it, and I'll be online. And then we do what we discussed essentially. So yeah, right. Scientists can register and do outreach in an efficient way. Teachers can use the platform to search for a scientist to join their classroom lesson, basically.
Yeah. So nice. So straightforward for everyone involved.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. You volunteer yourself as a scientist. You make an appointment, and then under your own terms, maybe set out
if you say you have
time
no
period
time,
you're going to spend.
Time. That's also fine.
For sure. And can you tell us about some of the experiences that you've had already with using RingaScientist? Is there any particular session or things that you or your colleagues have done on it that you can think of that would be a good example?
So in terms of experiments, for instance, I have shown an atomic force microscope during a physics lesson, where we did some imaging of DNA origami, and the students could actually see the device they had been learning about in their lessons. I've also led a lot of discussions about for instance, what to do for a living or what to study at university. So students were asking me questions mainly about how it is to study physics, how it is to work at the interface between physics, biology, and chemistry. And in all these Skype conferences that I participated in, I was actually impressed to see that the students were extremely open to ask questions, sometimes also compared to when I was present in the classroom live. So I felt like they were a bit more hesitant when I was actually like standing in front of them, and they seemed to feel at least quite comfortable in this virtual conversation. That's encouraging to see.
I hadn't really thought about it in this way, that you might demonstrate things in the lab. When I think about video conferencing, I think about talking heads. So it's kind of nice, that you can actually show off equipment.
Virtual
visualizations.
So sometimes can be very hard to actually get permission to let students see laboratories, especially for instance if it comes to animal research. But then actually showing them around doing virtual tour can be a very nice alternative.
Yeah, so a kind of
let's say.
Kind of spacewalk of the lab, hey? So we're sitting this interview within the context of looking at citizen science, and obviously you have arrived at this one way of introducing, I suppose, school students. I would imagine, mainly to I suppose as a channel, or to talk with scientists, for them to demonstrate what they're doing. It must have made you kind of think already about what other kind of connections can be set up. So are there ambitions or ideas that have kind of sprung from RingaScientist?
Definitely. So, I mean, the nice thing about working with students is they normally can't leave. So it's a very good it's a very nice target audience, of course, because they're normally excited, but also they have to be there, right? So everything is set up by the teacher, and we can really make sure that we reach them. And now, also students are citizen scientists, right? They are sometimes forced to be for their final projects, for instance. Like all schools do small research projects within their curricula for their final written essays and stuff. We are now also starting to target, for instance, museums. So one thing that I found always very fascinating is the idea to use Ring-a-Scientist as a platform to put a scientist's life into a museum. So imagine you walk into, as a museum visitor, you walk through an exhibition, you walk into a room, and all of a sudden you see a video of somebody doing experiments. This could be me, for instance, sitting at the microscope doing experiments. And then you start realizing that you can actually interact with this person. That this is not just a video, that you can actually talk to this person who is shown in the screen in the museum. And I think this can create a very interesting, very intimate kind of experience in a museum, where you can actually start and talk to a scientist who is there on the screen. And also for the person walking through the room, it's just a surprising experience, right? That it's actually not just a video, and that science is somewhat more real, right? That we are currently working in the lab. Things are going on. This is how research is happening. It's not happening in the ivory tower. It's approachable. Everyone can speak to us and so on. I think this would be a nice message that we would like to convey also with Ring-a-Scientist.
Yeah, you can. No, it's interesting about the museum. Yeah, because I mean, I think kind of historically the museum was once a place of teaching. You know, like the experimentalism itself came up as a form of demonstrating, to the public these scientific, to certain publics, the scientific discoveries. Yeah. So no, interesting. I think I was going to ask about how Ring-a-Scientist started, but I think you kind of told me that already. I think like many researchers who find their way to open science, it is because they want to see these connections that can be made. But I just wanted to ask you a little bit about the Wikimedia Deutschland program. And what kind of support that gave, and what kind of help that gave to you.
This is actually a crucial part in getting things started, because as I said, like I was visiting schools, I was then more and more converting to doing these visits in a virtual manner, so via Skype. But it was always just myself. I mean, it was always me who responded to teachers' requests by saying, okay, we can do it via Skype or via web video conferencing. I had the idea of setting up a platform and actually making this available as a tool to other researchers as well. But as you can imagine, it's always hard to get going. It's always hard to get the momentum to actually start things. And then I read about this Wikimedia Fellowship about open science fellows. And I actually pitched the idea to them, and they were happy to fund it. And this is when the actual platform got developed. So when together with Karl Gödel, we actually set up this system where you can sign up and actually use it as an end user, as a teacher or as a scientist.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. That's great. And that was in this 2018-19 program of the fellows?
2017 I got the fellowship, and then 2018 took a while. The platform actually went live.
I suppose it's good that you can get that extra support, because obviously we can all have ideas, but it is quite a challenge to find the time, put together the different things. I suppose this leads me to my next question, which is, well, we're probably within that process of what the Wikimedia Fellows program could give to you. I suppose like, my question is kind of two parts. Like, how did you take the idea from being an idea to, you know, a practical implementation? And maybe also, like, how do you see evaluating what gets done with the RingaScientist? It, you know, it could be fair enough to say, hey, this is a rapid prototyping phase.
Yeah.
We try things out. Was there anything kind of special within that you learned about how to put a platform into place?
Definitely. I must say that our approach was kind of really changing over time. So at the beginning, it was always very quantitative. My goal was, okay, we have to have this many scientists signed up by this and this date, and we have to have this many Skype interviews done by this and this date, and so on. And then actually we realized that we should take a step back and actually, first of all, talk to the teachers. And this was actually then a crucial part in developing the platform, that their input to actually ask what do they want, how would they search for profiles, which is quite different, of course, from maybe our understanding as scientists. Is how do they actually plan their lessons? How do they go about? When do they start planning such a lesson, and so on. So then we started to actually tailor this platform really towards the teachers to make it easy for them to use. And so in the end, we took a lot more time to set up the platform than we initially thought, and to automate everything. We also realized that, okay, if every single request goes via us, then we simply cannot do this. So now everything is automated. So all the requests go directly to the scientist who is invited to join the classroom lesson, and then it's up to them to answer. Of course, we do keep track on how many video conferences are happening. At the moment, however, we do not do any like qualitative analysis of what works best and so on. So this is something which would definitely be very interesting to do. But at the moment we are still trying to get more teachers to really use the platform, to make it more better known, to spread the word, essentially.
But it sounds like you went through some important steps there.
Definitely.
In terms of that learning and how to make something like this, and those are obviously important things that that other people trying to put together their citizen science programs. Also, it's good that they can take them on board.
I guess my advice is really talk to the end user as much as possible. That's
the thing. I think some of these things can be very when you start to talk about kind of design processes and UX and UI, it can seem very intimidating, but it is quite often not these simple things, as you're saying. Talk to people. I suppose I maybe just want to ask about citizen science in general. Maybe how you might think that like the RingaScientist fits into citizen science in general, or other types of citizen science things that you might see RingaScientist connected to. I don't know. I'm just asking, if you have any thoughts on that.
So I think citizen science is a fascinating new era of science that is coming up, and so what we really want to do, of course, is to bring the science to the people somehow, to bridge the gap between a lab, let's say, or a scientist, and the broader public, specifically school students. And of course, in the end, this can go both ways. So I mean, if a student is working on a project, for instance, on a science project, we are happy to give input. We are happy to talk about our science to then again inform students and so on. And I think this two-way dialogue is really something that should be going on between science and society.
Because you seem to be at the end of the, because citizen science can go from like, online crowdfunding projects, to do with climate change, or to do with stroke, analyzing stroke images, to things that are about creating spaces, whether they're online or in person, for a more kind of one-on-one contact.
Yeah, and I believe if there are scientists who do citizen science already, could also be very interesting for them actually to register on the platform and then to see it as a way to approach the public and to get more people participating in their like data collection, citizen science projects, whatever it is they are specifically working on.
And I suppose, well, another question I'd have is, so I suppose, how can institutions, scientists, end users get involved in RingaScientist? Is this really down to them, creating accounts, logging on, doing it?
Yes. So that's a 5-minute process. Just go to RingaScientist.org, and then there is a simple registration page. In terms of for institutions, we've had some institutions contacting us as institutions. We try and implement as much as we can their specific requests. For instance, being able to link RingaScientist to their websites or so on. So we try and do this as much as possible if an institution is approaching us. Like for instance, the scientists that Fridays for Future movement we were working together with them and created a banner where scientists could actually sign up with a banner, Scientists for Future, and then to indicate that they are specifically happy to talk about climate issues, for instance. So these kind of specific requests we try and deal with.
And so that's something you have running at the moment, the Fridays for Futures connection.
So scientists, when they sign up, they can specifically choose to have a banner on their profile picture saying that they are supporting Scientists for Future and the Fridays for Future movement, and that they are happy to talk to students who are interested in this.
That's such a fantastic connection, because well, you said earlier, the student in a learning context, in their study school, they're a captive audience, but here we have a new and different audience who are hungry to know. For their very future, for their very survival. I suppose, a kind of finishing question would be to say, what are the future plans for RingaScientist?
So our vision would really be to create a global network where teachers from anywhere in the world can contact scientists from anywhere in the world and make it a regular part of their classroom lessons, because we really believe that 21st century's education deserves 21st century's technology, and really creating a global network between scientists, teachers, and students. This would be our vision. Impressive to see that already our scientists are offering Skype conferences in more than 10 different languages, actually. So here the boundaries are really not given by location, for instance. So we can reach schools in rural areas. We can reach schools anywhere in the world in principle, and exploiting this potential. This would be really the vision.
Interesting. Well, it's I think sometimes it takes things which are very straightforward, but somehow just need to be done to demonstrate that it can be done.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you the best of luck with that.
Thank you.
Well, look, I would like to say thank you for your time.
Thank
It's
you.
been really, really interesting, and good luck with the project.
Thanks.
On GenR, we'll be keeping updates going on RingaScientist because we are currently covering this theme of citizen science. But I think, like you talking about Fridays for Futures and Scientists for Futures, we see a very close connection to climate change issues. And so our next theme is going to be about open science and climate change. How do the changes in scientific practice help aid in the climate change area? So there's a kind of so we'll be keeping some updates on RingaScientist going. And I suppose, hey, that's an idea, isn't it? I should be encouraging the GenR contributors to sign up to RingaScientist, of course.
To sign up and to tell their teacher friends.
Good idea. Even better. Yeah, their teacher friends too. Hey, well, brilliant. Thank you. And
thank you.